After I got back from the trip to Fort Knox a couple months ago, when we went to set everything up here, opened up the camper and saw that the bottom was all filled with oil, and turns out to be hydraulic fluid because that's the only oil we got in here. So I figured it must be something to do with the hoses. I didn't see anything leaking or squirting when I put the slide out. So I figured it had to be something on one of the return hoses, and I was hoping it'd be one of these shorties here, but upon further investigation, we found when we put the slide in that we had a stream of oil shooting out of this hose here. So this hose is obviously feeding the cylinder as it's retracting and just shooting oil straight up into the air, and that's what caused the oil to get all over the floor part of the opening here and dripping all over the place. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pulling the membrane off the bottom to find out where this thing goes to. And you can feel this hose feels a little bit older. It doesn't feel as pliable as these. These look like they may have been replaced not that long ago, but this one here, you got a bulge in it, and the hose itself feels a little brittle and old. So what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to pull the membrane off the bottom, see where these hoses go. And since we're having problems with one, I would anticipate that the supply hose, we're going to call this the return hose, but the supply hose, which pushes the cylinders out, is probably in the same kind of condition and could go at any time. So since we're doing all this work to pull the bottom apart, we might as well replace both hoses while we're in it. And then when we're all done with that, we're going to get back to checking our water levels on the batteries for our quarterly inspection and making sure everything's good to go for the trip coming up in a couple weeks. After identifying the hose, we pulled the hose back as far as we could inside the compartment there, and then we had to remove the insulation and cover underneath the camper here so that we could have access to it, which turned into this big mess. So I ran it, opened it up all the way to here to get all the connections where they had it taped together and on the frame. Ran it all the way back here, and you can see the push bar here. There's a plastic cover which allowed me to get in there and get on the crawler here for a second. Allowed me to get in here and get underneath it, and there's a plastic cover over the area where the pusher is. So I removed that cover and I cut back the little membrane that's under here and traced the hose back to this cylinder here. Luckily it was the close one and I didn't have to keep going back further into it. I was thinking about replacing all the hoses, but that's going to be a little bit of a problem with my timeline, so I think for now I'm just going to have a new hose made up and then get this thing put back together next week. When I get that thing, take it over to the local auto parts store, see if they can help me out. Otherwise I'll probably have to go to somewhere like Fastenal or something where they make the hydraulic hoses so that they can fab up a new one. I don't know how well you can see up here. It's kind of dark, but it routes underneath this cover along the frame rail. Not too bad, just a little messy. I think I might look at replacing some of this insulation as well. Looks like it's gotten wet and soggy. I still have some of that pink board left over. Maybe I'll at least start replacing the stuff up front and working my way back. So let's get that hose going if we can, and be back as soon as I get it and start putting it all back together. All right, yesterday I found a place that I showed in a previous video. It's called R.A. Adams Enterprises. They were open on a Saturday and they made the hydraulic hoses, so I got over there about a half hour before they closed, which was just enough time for them to make me a new hose. Got that all installed here, and now I just got to finish buttoning up the bottom and we should be in good shape. Well, that was a little bit of a messy job. All that insulation underneath there last night, man. I had to scrub the fiberglass particles out of my skin. But we do have it all back together again, and everything looks good. And there's one more thing I wanted to show you guys down here. One of the other suspension upgrades I did that I don't think I showed in the previous videos was that I did also weld a steel tube in between the center equalizer mounting points. That's in addition to the boxing and gusseting plates that I put into the ends of the suspension. So figured while I was down here, show you guys that. Also can see that since I'm down here, I inspected the lift and make sure everything on the suspension was still tight, and everything looks good. So I think we're ready for a road trip. As I was wrapping things up and cleaning up my tools, I realized that I had accomplished a major milestone in my fix-it career. I realized that I did not lose a single screw and that I did not have a single screw left over. I know it's hard to believe, but it happened. And there you have it, another project done. So glad I got that out of the way and didn't discover that along the road. Super excited for the trip. Get to go pick up my son as he gets out of the military, and we'll be seeing some friends along the way, some of which you may recognize. Got some fellow YouTubers that we're arranging to meet up with. I'll try to get some videos posted on that as time allows and as internet signals allow, because some of the places may not have access to the internet or cell service, so it's going to be an interesting trip. So stay tuned and keep an eye out, and I'll post things as I can. So in the meantime, hope you guys have a good one, and if you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. Talk to you soon.